Democrats seem to be losing their minds. Yes, you lose $1 billion, effectively you waste $1 billion. You might as well burn it on the White House lawn. So there is that. There is losing to a man that you've called Hitler, fascist. You've called him a sexual abuser. You basically say he tried to overthrow the government of the United States. You go for 3 years having an investigation into that man on a conspiracy theory of Russia working with that particular man to win the race back in 2016. You call him everything but a child of God. And in the end, he wins. You could not even beat a guy that's been impeached twice. Again, he wins. And he doesn't just win. Trump makes gains into Democratic majorities in regards to blacks, the younger vote, and Hispanics. And he does it in 49 states all across the country. The Republicans are going to have the best showing in Congress from the standpoint of the popular vote going back to 1928. And the number of Hispanics that Donald Trump was able to get, there's no history on record that has a Republican getting that many. It's a historic campaign. He has a mandate. Now, if you're the Democratic Party, your candidate has just gotten crushed. What do you do now? Now, that is a fascinating question to me. And when I've had people on, I've asked them that. What do you do now? Now, if Donald Trump lost, it's a little bit more straightforward. Ultimately, Republicans will look for something else. Donald Trump was the standard bearer for that particular campaign. He had a coalition around him when he won that race. So you would imagine that as he limps away, that there will be elements of Trump, almost just like Trump has elements of the Tea Party, that creates a certain line of thought, even if he lost. Trump didn't lose. Trump won. Now, for the Democratic Party, I have no idea what that means. Because truth of the matter is, when Sanders ran, Sanders had a coalition. They often say the failure of the right is the rise of the left. And what they mean by that is, oftentimes when people are voting for a particular demographic or party, when they're voting for a party, the assumption is that there are going to be two parties that are in the middle. Meaning, whatever the country, however it thinks, there's a body of thought, and that body of thought ends up with two political parties that is considered the middle. That's the center. And the idea is that the center, meaning the middle of the country, is the part that gets the job done. They're consistent. They're the ones that are trying to balance the factors and the forces within the country itself. Okay, what happens when a center can no longer do that? Meaning when it becomes very clear that the center, and what we consider to be the center, is a radical loss of credibility in their capability of either doing the job or, for that matter, representing the interests of that public. The center gets replaced. And whatever that center was, there becomes a new, let's say, a new body of thought, a new brain trust. There becomes a new orthodoxy in the way that things operate. It's not a complete replacement. That is true. By the same token, it is something different, which is kind of the issue, and which is why Liz Cheney and many of the other Republicans were lumping in with Kamala Harris. The belief being, if we can work with Harris, we can stop Trump, and we can regain the control of the Republican Party. It did not work that way. Now, for Democrats, because there was no coalition, because there was no, love for Joe Biden, there was no love for Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris and Joe Biden were stand-in order to beat back Trump. What happens now? Now, in the context of the Democratic Party, whereas the center failed, the person who was supposed to take that mantle, creating a new, let's say, arrangement in regards to what it means to be the center of politics in this country, was Sanders. He had a coalition. He had a funding source. He had millions of people that believed in him and was going to work with him in order to make that take place. But instead of having a straight primary in the way the Republicans did, where the center, as it fell, the new center arises, that being Trump, the Democratic Party had various systems in place in order to weed out Sanders. Effectively, they cheated. Superdelegates being one element of it, Hillary Clinton having absolute control over the political apparatus being another, Sanders being somewhat a weak candidate, not believing in himself, and instead of running a campaign dead set on winning, he ran a campaign in the very beginning just to kind of push Hillary Clinton in a particular direction. He should have went for a win. He didn't realize it, that it was his moment. The point that I'm trying to make is when the center falls, there are other elements within the context of these parties or in the political space that usually takes over and becomes this normal new center. The Democrats prevented that from taking place in their party. The Republicans couldn't stop it in theirs. Hence, Donald Trump. It's Donald Trump. Um, because the Democrats stopped that coalition in their party, meaning this kind of new organization of thought, this new organization of being, and because the public wants something fundamentally different, they lost. Now, it's not so much that they lost that I'm pointing to, I'm also pointing to what's next. Meaning, what do you do now? Will there be soul searching? Will there be this kind of appraisal, this acceptance of blame and guilt that you've spent and wasted $1 billion? Sanders pointed out that you didn't represent the working class, or the working class didn't come out for you. Now, they don't like that. They complained about that. You have one Democrat after the next, including Nancy Pelosi, Clyburn being the one that even got Kamala Harris in the Joe Biden administration in the first place, but whatever. All of these people coming out saying, Sanders is wrong. I do not respect that statement from Bernie Sanders. Okay, then how do you explain the majority of the working class going to Trump? How do you explain elements of your coalition eroding away, either staying at home or voting for Trump? How do you explain that? Now, you could say it's all just misinformation. You can say, well, all of those men were just sexist and racist and bigoted, and Kamala Harris ran a sparkling campaign. They had Queen Latifah. God damn it, Queen Latifah was even there. You could say that. Doesn't change the fact that you lost $1 billion and that many of the coalition left. You have to deal with why. Now, if you want to try to distance yourself from that failure and try to not acknowledge the fact that you failed, and I hear this thing that keeps bubbling up where they're blaming Joe Biden or they're blaming the left. But what they're not talking about the left. They're talking about this woke stuff. That's a secondary video. I'm sorry. It's on my mind. It's annoying me. To get back to the basic point. What happens now with the Democratic Party now that they failed? They have no coalition in the sense of people who are agitating and hopped up. Their entire resistance up for the last 8 years has been in response to Trump. They didn't necessarily have a proactive thing on their own. Trump is now in office. So what are they going to do going forward? What is the next plan? So I am calling this Operation Hail Mary because from my point of view, it has zero chance of success. A, they're blaming Joe Biden. They're effectively saying that Joe Biden should have gotten out of the race earlier. There's that part. And there's a lot of heaping of blame on Joe Biden. Okay, fair enough. He deserves some of it. Fair enough. Again, as I pointed out before, though, if Joe Biden got out the race early, there's no reason to believe that Kamala Harris would have been the candidate. She would have had to go through a primary. Even if you had a truncated primary at the DNC convention, there is no reason to believe, as a flat fact, that Kamala Harris would have won it. So the only way you would have gotten Kamala Harris in as a president, potentially, or even running in the primary as the lead candidate, is for it to happen in the way that it happened now. So you could hit Joe Biden for that. But if you're hitting him for that, you're effectively saying you didn't want Kamala Harris as your candidate. You wanted somebody else, which again, is fine. Democrats have come up with a Hail Mary plan almost as a consolation prize. This is not going to happen, but they're throwing it out there. This is CNN. I believe this guy's name is Bakari Sellers, Democratic Cretin, one of the swamp monsters. Listen to what he says that he wants to do now in order to rile up Republicans, I suppose is what he's trying to go with. They want Harris on the Supreme Court. They want Joe Biden, I suppose, to get rid of Sotomayor and to replace Sotomayor with Kamala Harris. No, I'm being serious.
Liberal, and so I hope that Joe Biden makes the next 10 weeks as consequential as he can. I don't care about drawing outside the lines or what Republicans may think about it. This is within your purview. You can actually do it, and you should do it. And, one more thing, John, is you have a hell of a vice president right there who has a legal pedigree to sit on the Supreme Court. And let Republicans go crazy and hate. I'm even mentioning that option.
You're floating. Are you floating? This is 7:39 a.m. on the East Coast. Did Bakari Sellers just float Vice President Kamala Harris as a potential Supreme Court nominee?
Not only am I floating it, but I want to stir up everything. I want people's heads to explode this morning so we go into the weekend.
I mean, dude, Nobody's head is going to explode. I don't think Republicans care all that much at this point, especially since they basically won the House, the Senate, the Supreme Court, and the presidency. The House is still up for grabs, but they're probably going to take it. So this seems like a consolation prize, and it seems like you have nothing else better to do after this loss than float something that you know will go nowhere. This is more sad than anything else. It's somewhat pathetic. Instead of you guys dealing with the fact that you lost and trying to figure out why did we lose so badly and how do we fundamentally change the party in a way that can, entice the American public to join as opposed to be repulsive to men and other demographics that we typically could get. How do we do that? That seems to be off the table. What he wants is, well, clearly you should give her to Sotomayor. That should be the next step in your last few days or few months as president. For one, Sotomayor is not going to step down. Two, I have a hard time believing Joe Biden is going to ask Sotomayor to step down. Three, even if Joe Biden did ask her to step down, she's probably going to tell Joe Biden to go fuck himself. I don't even know why he floated this, frankly. The other thing that they're floating, Operation Hail Mary Part 2, it's not just Bakari Sellers. Another Democratic operative is floating this. Well, right here, this is Bakari Sellers also, by the way. He doubled down. Other bold idea, Sotomayor needs to resign. The court is currently 6-3. This would limit Trump's ability to make it 7-2. It's silly to believe there's no difference. You can confirm 10 weeks. You also have very good previously vetted candidates. Sri Srinivasan, Robert Wilkins, Michelle Childs, and yes, Kamala Harris. If step one doesn't occur, she could very likely be another story, much like Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Now, the reason he's saying this, and it's not without some level of merit, fair enough. If you remember, Ruth Bader Ginsburg died on the bench. No, not literally on the bench and died, but for all intents and purposes, she had cancer. And instead of her stepping down to allow Obama to choose another Supreme Court pick, she did not. She ends up dying during Trump's term, and Trump ends up getting to choose a candidate to take her place. Also, if you remember, Obama didn't fight for his own Supreme Court seat. Instead of choosing Merrick Garland, he chose Merrick Garland. He chose the most milquetoast person he could choose to put on that court. Mitch McConnell saying the best thing in his career was preventing Obama from getting his Supreme Court seat. Because what ended up happening was Trump won, and a seat that belonged to Obama ends up going to Trump. Obama didn't even fight for it. All things being equal, I think he assumed that Hillary Clinton would win it, and Hillary Clinton would be able to put somebody on the bench. But no drama. Obama didn't want to start any drama, and so Donald Trump gets the seat. Do I know as a flat fact that Obama could have fought to get that seat through? No, I do not know as a flat fact. Does he know? Probably not. Should he have fought for it? Hell yeah, considering it was his seat. And so now Trump ends up getting 3 people on the Supreme Court. They're worried that Sotomayor would die on the bench, in which case Donald Trump will be able to put a 4th person on the court. So the thought is, take out the weakest link, put in Harris or somebody stronger. That way you have somebody on the court that can live a much longer life in the way that they're thinking about it. Let me know what you think in the comments. I have a hard time believing this is going to take place, but this is what Democrats are now floating. Here's another one that they're floating. They want Joe Biden to step down. They want Joe Biden to step down so Kamala Harris can be made president of the United States so they can have the first black woman president. Right here. Joe Biden has been amazing, but he should fulfill one last promise to be transitional. Biden should resign and make Kamala Harris the first woman president. It turns the tables on Trump, keep Kamala from presiding on January 6th, make it easier for the next woman to run. Hashtag Trailblaze Podcast. Democrats have better policies, but we must realize that old rules no longer apply. We are not playing table tennis. We are in a mixed martial arts fight, and Americans respond to drama and excitement. We should use that to make our argument for a better path forward. You get beat in a race by a landslide. And I know people disagree with me on that, but Kamala Harris only got 226 electoral votes, give or take, with Donald Trump nearly getting 100 more electoral votes. I'm saying nearly. It's close to 100 more. He made gains in Democratic majorities in 49 states, 49 out of 50 states. The Republican Party got more of the popular vote than they have since 1928 on the coattails of Donald Trump. And whereas in the old days they were saying that it was impossible for a Republican to ever win the popular vote again, Donald Trump just won the popular vote by 4 million more votes. Now, considering the demographic realities that Republicans go through when they run in this race, yeah, I call it a landslide. He's basically bucking all the typical trends in order to win. Now, this guy's best idea, Jamal Simmons, or for that matter, Bakari Sellers, is America likes drama. That's what it is. That's what we're taking from this loss. We got beat miserably because America likes drama, and Donald Trump was in a trash can, and Donald Trump was working at McDonald's, and so we need to give more drama as the Democratic Party. And the way that we get more drama is for Joe Biden to give her the Sotomayor, or Joe Biden to step down and make Kamala Harris president. Hey, why not combine them? Why not do both? Why not have Joe Biden step down and make Kamala Harris president? She could be president and Supreme Court justice. Since we're just spitballing and throwing out random stuff, you don't learn. You don't learn. That's not why you lost. You didn't lose because of the issue of drama. You lose because you're not worth anything. What the hell does the Democratic Party stand for? It's that. And you should have learned this lesson when you were running against Sanders. If you remember, if you remember back during when Tom Perez ended up being head of the DNC, and that year they kept asking, what does the Democratic Party stand for? They kept asking it over and over and over again, and none of them had an answer. And not just not have an answer, Donna Brazile, when she was asked, she was like, well, Tom Perez is leader of the party now. I think he would know better than anybody else. I'm saying that same question is damning. The American public had no idea what you stood for. And from their point of view, it was not the working class. And from their point of view, it was not the average American. If it was, she would have won. So in a campaign where the American public tells you decisively, we don't want her. We don't want her. We don't want her anywhere near the White House. Your plan is, fuck what America wants. Joe Biden should step down and put Harris in office anyway. That's your plan. A big F you to America, because America didn't choose your candidate to win the race. You're missing the point. I would say all of you are missing the point. Whether it's Kamala Harris ran a perfect campaign, and everybody was just sexist and racist. Whether it's, well, Hispanics, you own it all, so when you get deported and your family members get deported, you have no one to blame but yourself. That is what Joy-Ann Reid said in one of her videos. Rachel Maddow is claiming that the media is now going to be like RT, which is pretty ironic considering there was a Democrat in that office and MSNBC is just a talking propaganda network for the Democratic Party, effectively. The MSNBC is literally state media and has been for the last 4 years. You all are missing the point. Instead of using identity politics, instead of splitting people up by race, gender, sex, and everything else, why not create a model that is inclusive to the needs of all of these people? All of these people, I promise you, need healthcare, they need education. When their old folks get old, they want the ability to take care of their older folks without necessarily breaking the bank. When older people get old, they want the capability of being able to take care of themselves, which they should be able to. If you spend 60, 70 years working in this country, giving your productive energies to the best interests of this country, when you get old and retire, you should be intact. Full stop. I'm saying these are things that the richest country on the planet should be able to provide for its citizenry. And right now, there's no political party that fights for that. Now, Pelosi and some of these other Democrats will take umbrage when somebody points that out. But the American public clearly doesn't believe that you do. If they did, they would have voted for you. They did not vote for you. They voted for a billionaire, which, again, should be humiliating. The Democratic Party is supposed to be the party of the working class. The Republican Party is supposed to be the party of the 1%. And yet, the American public, the working class included, looked at the Democratic Party as being the party for the rich and the elite. High educations, high salaries. They looked at Trump and the Republican Party as being the party of the working class. You didn't even get unions. Even the Teamsters, the majority of them went with Trump, which is, again, astonishing, considering Democrats are the party of unions. I'm saying you failed on a massive fucking level. And what you take from this is we need more spectacle. We need more, Swifties. We need more twerking on stage. That's what we need to do. If we had more twerks, we would have, won this thing. You are missing the point. All of you are missing the point. You can't accept the fact that you are no longer the Democratic Party of FDR, despite the fact that you still live off of the fumes of that administration 60, 70 years ago. Your opportunity to get out of this was Sanders, and you did everything in your power to kill that opportunity, meaning the thing that would have liberated you was the thing that you shot in the face. And you're shocked that the American public didn't vote for you, and you're bewildered by all of this. And in your bewilderment, you've gone into fantasy. I'm saying you need to fundamentally be different. And you need to be a vehicle by which the American public can affect the things that it wants in the country. Now, I get it. Part of the problem that the Democratic Party has is because our campaigns run on money. It's that. And the reason why I point that out is because what Democrats have started to do is, instead of using issues of the economic populist left, healthcare, education, meaning Medicare for all, free college, the ensure health for the elderly, expansion of Social Security, instead of this stuff, the stuff that is a typical lefty platform that the overwhelming majority of the public actually agrees with, well, that costs money. And because it costs money, and for that matter, millionaires and billionaires can afford those things. They don't need those things. Elon Musk doesn't need us to pay for his healthcare. He can afford his healthcare. He can pay for schools. He can pay for all that stuff. He doesn't need that stuff. And so when you're going as a Democrat and you're going to one of your wealthy friends and you say, hey, I need you to give me money because I want to win the race. And they say, what is your platform? And you say, well, I want education. I want healthcare. I want to expand Social Security. And they're going to look at you and say, well, we don't need those things. We don't care about those things. In which the Democrat now has to make an argument for why those things are something that they should be able to push for and how it would be advantageous to the rich. Now, the reality of it is, for the longest time, they just didn't make their argument. They just stopped. They started to say, okay, well, we're going to use, identity. So we're going to use race. We're going to use sex. We're going to use transgender stuff. We're going to use bathrooms. We're going to use all of these other things instead of dealing with the populist lefty message. By the way, they did the same thing with Martin Luther King. He cared about civil rights. He was a socialist. They always leave that part out. This idea of what is the point of you being free if you're living on the street? It's that. That is the part that they carve off his legacy, and that is the part that the Democratic Party has fundamentally carved off in general. And instead, it's civil rights, black, white, gay, straight, Chinese, Hispanic, etc., as opposed to an economic message that unifies the entirety of the country or the majority of the country for you to build a coalition. They've decided that it is easier to put up a black person and say, this person is black, so you should like them, and you should vote for them because they're black and you're black. And, by virtue of them being black, they're going to somehow do something for you because they're also black. And to do that with one demographic after the next, as if the very fact of putting somebody who's Hispanic, black, gay, or whatever into a particular position somehow benefits me in some kind of esoteric sense, as opposed to, Medicare for all that benefits everyone, or free education, which again benefits everyone, not just everyone, the country as a whole, when you can have any and everybody self-actualize themselves in regards to the education that they receive and that they get. I'm saying that is not the Democratic Party. I'm saying that is something else. I'm saying that is what it should be. It should be representative of the interests of the overwhelming majority of the American public. And currently, the Democratic Party is not that, which is why they lost. They don't even voice that, meaning that is not something that even comes up. And my point is, the reason it doesn't come up, the reason they use issues of identity is because ultimately they run in a campaign that requires money. And they know that 90% of the races are won with the side with the most cash. So more than anything else, the most important part is getting as much cash as you can possibly get. So if I'm bringing up healthcare, education, expansion of Social Security, I'm not going to get the money for that. They don't need those things. What I can do is say inclusivity, civil rights, transgender kids, etc. I can say those things. Those things don't hit anybody's pocketbook or wallet. Saying the other stuff that the American public actually agrees with. As long as the Democratic Party is functioning in a system where they need massive amounts of money to operate, they are going to be this ineffectual party unless they find a different model in which to operate. This video wasn't meant to be long. It's just aggravating. They take an L, and the first thing they think of is we need more spectacle. We need more spectacle.